taking pictures for?
No,
Where you gonna put them in?
Look.
The most interesting part of this story to me is the way these people did come together. Dan coming from wealth, an old money family.
These are my friends from outer space that I so enjoy having in the garden here with me.
Gaylord coming from North Tulsa. And then the third player in this thing is Bill Raybon, who's a local artist. Danny was just completely turned on by photography. He comes back here, and he's been seeing Herron in Tulsa People and on KOTV and in the Tribune, so he knows him. He gets introduced to Herron.
It was like we'd always known each other. It was one of those immediate things. They always had things in yellow boxes. It's a classic yellow Kodak box. So he had tons of these things lining bookshelves and cabinets. Those boxes were almost like bars of gold. They were so beautiful, and I knew that they held great riches.
When he started looking at pictures, and then there were thousands of photographs that were just proof prints,
And I was in a position where I had a little extra cash. My parents had some money that they were forwarding to me. I was 25 at the time, 24, 25. And they gave me the green light to do a project like that, where I could go and spend $50,000 and do it right.
So he said, let's do a book on these. And I said, okay, let's do a book on these.
Gaylord quit his job. Judy wasn't happy about that. I don't know if that got talked about, but that job was steady work at KOTV. He was a well-liked, well-respected reporter. He was an excellent reporter. And I think, though, it was just too mainstream. And when I came along and he saw in me someone that would, could carry the deal for a while, he thought, I'm going for it.
Without Dan Mayo, this book doesn't happen. And without Dan Mayo's sensibility, his aesthetic, and his money, this book just doesn't happen. It's like Gaylord said, no one was knocking on his door, And then here comes Dan and says, here's the money, do a book.
And then I was faced and confronted with, well, what's this book going to be like? You can do anything you want to do, right? What are you going to do? What are you going to say?
We put together the project to do Vagabond and set about to accomplish that. We had a good friend, Bill Raybon, who was one of our buddies that went around and did things with us at that time.
And these three each brought something to the project. And Danny brought an aesthetic sense and money. Of course, Herron brought the work and the vision. And it's kind of unclear as to what Raybon brought. I mean, was he a muse? I don't know.
What was my part in that book, making that book? I'd be kind of like an advisor, maybe kind of a spiritual advisor. I still am.
Bill Raybon is a painter. He's been a painter for a long, long time, and was something of an inspiration while we were putting this book together.
Somebody said Vagabond, and Gaylord got real interested in the Bible, the story of Cain and Abel. And I think we saw Bill as a person that was on the loose, that there was no home, there was no house, there was no family.
Most of the 70s I spent just banging around the streets for about 10 years. And I did amphetamine. He
was so symbolic of the ultimate artist, the ultimate creator, that we all just wanted to be Bill Raybon, kind of like Eric Clapton's always said he wants to be J.J. Cale.
When Vagabond first came out, it was like, what is this? I mean, I loved a lot of the images, but I did this Cain and Abel thing, and there was a lot of stuff, that I just didn't understand. And in fact, have really not understood until I sat down and talked with Herron about it.
He was going through something there, and which, he probably should have been, because he was creating this book that, catalyzed essentially his entire life story up to that point.
Vagabond was done because of the death of my father. He died before he was able to, get with me and communicate the things that needed to be communicated between a father and a son. So everything I saw after that was through that lens. Everything I felt was through that lens of guilt.
When we were really working on it, it was more of like, it was a wonderful kind of poetic collaboration, like if you were writing poetry together.
We're making this happen by the seat of our pants. In other words, we set up anywhere, kind of like stream of consciousness writing.
It was just the most creative, most exciting time of one's life to be able to have an experience like that. And what an education in such an intense moment.
Yeah, there was a party element to it. I don't know, but we did drugs.
It was already a fact that this was good stuff. This was art that worked. And you just practically could combine any picture with any other picture.
So in Vagabond and throughout his work, you see, things that are blurry and out of focus, right alongside something that's absolutely right on, precise.
The book really was literally taking father as a godlike figure and son as, a mortal, innocent mortal, through that Cain and Abel story. And as if God had sent Cain, after he slew Abel, out into the world like a boomerang being thrown.
When this was published, Danny wanted to do a monograph, just one picture on each page, not a lot of words. And this idea, the form of this book was Gaylord's, and he was backed up in that by Vagabond. And Danny was, Danny had enough sense to say, this is your project, you go with it.
A lot of the reviewers talked about that. It was like a format that hadn't been seen, and it was kind of on the leading edge of experimental, memoir. It's really what it is. It's a memoir that's more visual than literary. There's a lot of painting and photography and very little writing.
Gaylord's modes of expression are not just photography, not just painting, not just carpentry, not just woodwork. It's everything, it's life.
It had a lot of anger in it, of course, toward everything connected to Tulsa, to my resentment that it didn't work out the way I wanted it to.
They took about 5 trips to New York.
It was to celebrate and to finish, and to have the privilege to observe the greatest printer in the world print our book. Sidney Rappaport truly was the greatest printer of his time.
Well, once they got into the city, there we were. It's kind of like that was just that was the playground. And that Chelsea was just part of the playground. Better stay there than stay at the Palazzo.
And Vagabond and Danny were out partying, and Danny, they were going to the Carlisle to hear Short, and Herron was spending all of his time down at Rappaport working on the book, and the whole thing was just this sort of wonderful voyage, and then this comes out.